coming to you from an unknown location, at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, bringing you the unknown. Welcome to another spine-tingling episode of Paranormal 411. Your hosts are David Reagan and Jason Scott, and together, they dive headfirst into the mysteries that lurk just beyond our understanding, featuring notable experts ready to share their insights into the world of the strange and unknown. So pull up a chair, pour a cup of something warm, and prepare to be enthralled. Here at Paranormal 411, we're not just a radio show, we're a community of truth seekers, adventurers of the mind, exploring the boundaries of the known and unknown. We invite you to join us, to share your thoughts, your experiences, your questions. Whether you've had your own encounter with the supernatural or you're simply intrigued by the inexplicable, we want to hear from you. So, don't be shy. Drop a comment and let's unravel the mysteries of the universe together. Buckle up as we journey beyond the veil of the ordinary, into the heart of the extraordinary. This is Paranormal 411, where the inexplicable meets reality and imagination takes flight. Stay tuned and remember, in the world of the paranormal, nothing is as it seems.
All right. Welcome
back man.
To another episode.
It's Tuesday.
Tuesday.
What do you think about that, Jason? Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Did you have a good day?
4 more days. We're going to the Bigfoot conference.
Oh, man. Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
If you're going to be in the area, I would say definitely come and check it out. You're going to have David Politis there and all kinds of other good guests.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd say if you can, join us. Definitely join us.
Yes.
Now, you can find us at paranormal411.org. Also on Paranormal 411 on Facebook, YouTube, and X. You can tune in live every Tuesday and Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And on Saturdays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're in the metro Atlanta area, you can catch us at WDJY-FM. That's 99.1 FM. And for listeners outside of Atlanta, you could visit us at WDJYFM.com, or you could go to www.paranormal411.org. Click the link. It'll also take you there. We're also on Subspace Radio and all of your major podcast platforms. Remember, let me reach over here and get this. Don't miss our new book, East Tennessee Hauntings and Lore, Edition 2. It's available on Amazon or at paranormal411.org. Click the link again. Join us.
Yeah, don't forget to leave a review if you
definitely leave a review,
like it.
Please. It helps us.
Yes.
We've sold more books than we've had reviews.
Yeah, I know, right? So we got a great show lined up tonight. We have Allison Hartman, which is she's an alien contactee. She's going to be telling her story, and it's going to be a good one.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Been looking forward to it for 3 weeks or so now. So
yeah, we was going to have her on, I think last week,
a couple of
weeks ago.
Yep.
She had something come up, but I'm glad we got her.
Yes,
today. So Allison's experience with extraterrestrial beings began in childhood, and they've continued throughout her life. These encounters particularly frequent in the past 2 years have ranged from visitations in her room to journeys aboard their craft. I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome.
Additionally, she has had numerous vivid dreams and astral projections contributing to this phenomenon. While predominantly positive, these experiences are undeniably extraordinary.
Oh,
so we're going to bring her on, Allison Hartman. How you doing, Allison?
I'm doing great. How are y'all doing?
Doing excellent.
Doing good.
Excellent. Thank you for coming on and doing the show.
Yes, we thank you.
Telling your stories.
I mostly love telling these stories. And I appreciate you being flexible and letting me kind of switch to this week. So appreciate
you're fine. The show's about our guests, not about us.
Yes.
so it's your show, not ours. But yeah. So I know we was talking a little bit before the show, but so how old was you when all this started?
Well, I was about 5 years old, and I remember it very specifically because it was 1989. And the reason why I remember it being that year was because we lived right on Highway 65, but back then in Arkansas, Central Arkansas is where I'm from, and it was just a 2-lane highway back then. And a few years later, we were so close to the highway, my parents had to tear down their front porch. But that front porch there's a part in the story that kind of involves the front porch. So that's why I remember I was 5 years old. And so I definitely started when I was really, really young. I'm 40 now. And so I've had a lot of years of very strange experiences, but I like to tell you about my first one when I was 5, and then maybe a more recent one. So let's see. So it was 1989. Lived in a small town in Central Arkansas, and I shared a room I have a twin sister and an older brother, and we all shared the same room. And it was the middle of the night. One thing I can tell you that I remember very vividly is our room faced the highway. And since we were so close to it, our curtains were always closed. Our parents didn't want the headlights coming in and shining in on us. So they were always closed, and they were Snoopy curtains. And one night I got up to go to the bathroom, and when I came back through the house and walked into the room, really before I even got into the room, the first thing I noticed is the curtain that faces the highway was just wide open. And would have been no reason for that. I mean, everyone in the house was asleep. I didn't hear anybody get up. It just didn't make any sense. So that kind of freaked me out. And so I walked into the room, and I noticed that through that window, there was what I could only describe as your very typical gray alien. He was sitting, and I say he, I don't really know, he, she, or whatever. It just felt like kind of a male presence. But this front porch that we had that was right outside this window, there was an old school, like wooden school desk, because my mom was a teacher for years. So we had that kind of stuff around. And he was like sitting in the desk, and he had his arms stretched out on top of the desk, and he was turning his head to just look at me through the window, and just still as a statue. And I just looked at him, and it didn't scare me. I don't remember being scared. I actually remember being kind of sort of neutral about it. I didn't have very many feelings at all, other than if I screamed, I was going to wake up my siblings. And I was more scared about waking them up and making them mad than thing that is just looking at me. So I don't know. I felt, and maybe it was causing me to be still. I'm not really sure, or causing me to be calm, but it was just a very nonchalant type experience. And I probably stared at it for like 30 seconds. And then I kind of got my bearings, and I slowly walked over to my bed. And me and my sister shared like a trundle bed. So she was on the top, and then I had the bottom that would roll in and out. And so my bed was very low, and it was right underneath the other window in the room that faced out into our backyard. So I just walked to my bed, and I laid down, and I just had this urge to open the other curtain. And I opened the other curtain, and we've got from that window in the house that I grew up in, we have a storm shelter, and it was maybe only 20 feet from the window. And when I opened the curtain, there was a small craft that was sitting in between the window and the storm cellar. So it was very close to the house. And it was about the size of the storm cellar. I would say, a large family van type size. And it wasn't maybe, it's hard to, remember since I was so little, but if I had to estimate 7 or 8 feet tall, it was circular, had a dome on the top and a little bit of a dome on the bottom. And then it was sitting on tripod legs. And then around the rim of it was a row of colored lights. I remember green, red, white, maybe yellow. And again, it was very like, oh, this is happening. I didn't really have any feelings in the moment. I just closed the curtain. I laid down in my bed, and I remember thinking, well, if it comes inside the room, want it to see me. So all a 5-year-old can do is, it's like an ostrich, like out of sight, out of mind. You put your head in the ground and they can't see you. So I just pulled my covers over my head like this and was just clenching them up above, my head. And I fell asleep eventually. And I woke up the next morning just like that, in that same position. And I opened my eyes and I remember seeing like sunlight through the blanket and realizing, okay, it's morning. And I just pulled the blanket down and was so excited because I was like, oh, what? Like that, I can't believe that happened to me. And I ran through the house and I was telling everybody. And I just thought it was like, I'm going to have the coolest story at school to tell all my friends that I saw this alien in the spaceship. And it wasn't at all weird. It was just totally normal to me. And that was my very first experience. Then for about, I don't know, I'd say maybe 6 months after that, another sort of strange thing that I link to them is this only happened when I would go to the bathroom because we had a full house and we only had one bathroom, and that was the only place you could ever go if you ever wanted to be alone. And every once in a while I would be in there just, doing my business, and I would all of a sudden see this green dog, like a wiener dog, just pop out of nowhere and just kind of float around the room. And it had, it looked like a cartoon that came to life. It was very bright green. It had concentric rings like around its neck and the tip of its tail. And I just thought like, oh, they're here to check on me. I just remember thinking, oh, they're here to check on me. It must be them. They're just here to check on me. And that probably happens, I don't know, a handful of times. And I do remember telling my mom about it, and she's like, oh, it's just an imaginary friend. I was like, well, I don't think so, but if you say so. But very, very real. I had a nickname for him. I named him Bernard and just talked to him like he was my buddy, and he never talked back, but I always just kind of expected that he'd show up periodically. So that was pretty much the extent of what I remember from my childhood experiences. It's definitely kicked something off there.
That's interesting though, because, I had a different experience, but it was terrifying for me. And with you having that kind of, when you saw this thing and then you saw the craft, your only thing was to do exactly what a kid would do, right? Hide underneath the covers. But, I would think that it'd be scary. I wouldn't think that and so it seems to me like, do you think that they're doing something to you to give you that kind of calmness to tell you, hey, maybe subliminally or something that we're not going to hurt you or something like that to make you where you're not like that?
I mean, I think it has to be. I mean, I know I've heard some other people's stories where if you're a really young kid, maybe you just don't know what's weird or supposed to be scary.
Right.
So maybe that's part of it, but I definitely know from my more recent experiences that if I have an experience where I'm scared in the beginning, I will immediately become calm. Or if I'll tell them like something hurts, I will immediately stop, the pain stops. So I feel like definitely they have that ability to make somebody calm down and, not, they want to keep themselves safe too. I think, they don't want us rushing them and punching them in the face or whatever, but, yeah.
What, when they come to you, or do they always come to you like physically, or is it more mentally? Do you know?
I mean, it's a mix. I've had a lot of dreams and astral experiences. My more recent, I'd say starting in late 2021, I would just wake up in the middle of the night and like I would feel the air, like something's different. And then I'd look around the room and there would be something in the room. And I wouldn't say that this, like the same ones frequent. It's like they're very different looking. I've had a lot of very different looking creatures visit me. And some of them will change their appearance during the interaction as well, which just, I'm like, at one point, I remember the most recent one I had, I knew they were getting ready to take me, but they look like humans. And I said, why don't you just show me what you really look like? Because I'm not afraid. Like, I already know. Like, it's fine. And so when I said that, that's when they changed. And they were these kind of stubby, ugly looking little guys that I had never experienced before. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I know what you really look like. So yeah, it's really a mixed bag.
That's interesting. That was going to be a question I was going to ask a little bit in a little bit was, you know, have you had contact with more than one, you know, type of extraterrestrial and stuff? But that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, mostly they're gray, I guess you could say, but variations of them. I've seen some that are taller, some that are shorter, some that maybe there's a little glow to the skin, and some that aren't. And then I've had some that there was one that looked reptilian, but it would not let me see its face. I could only see it from the neck down. And I even to it was saying, let me, because that's more scary to me that I cannot see your face. But it never did. It never would show me its face. And that was a very quick interaction. I've had some that come in like they're in these robes and they're wearing clothes. And some of them you can't tell. It looks like they're not wearing any clothes, but I feel like they're wearing some kind of suit. But it, you know, they don't really look like, it just looks like their skin.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been very interesting.
That's awesome.
It is. Wish I could see something like that.
I don't know. You know, I've seen ghosts my whole life, and they don't bother me or scare me. But I don't know. I think aliens would creep me out. I mean, don't get it wrong. I would love to have the experience. But I think that the first couple of times I'd be like, I probably freeze up, just sit there like. I don't think I could do it.
Have you ever figured out the reason they're contacting you, or?
You know, I've ever since, you know, I was 5 and that started, I mean, I think that really just triggered something in me. I was always interested in aliens and Sasquatch and the Bermuda Triangle and all of that. So I wasn't any stranger to any of that sort of paranormal stuff and was always interested in it. So I think that's maybe one of the reasons why I'm not as scared now. I've been told, because I've asked various, you know, psychics or different people like, hey, why, you know, what's the deal? And I've had different ones say, oh, you're part of a hybridization program, or you're learning such and such on a craft and or something like that, because you're going to use that later to teach people that you know. So it's been kind of mixed, but for the most part, it feels like some type of hybridization, because some of them I will have physical symptoms like after the fact that leads me to believe that there's been some type of manipulation to, you know, my physical body in some way. And so that kind of tracks. But I will say this, because people always ask when I tell them this as well, you know, you had a twin sister. Has she ever had any experiences? And she hasn't, you know, other than a few dreams, she hasn't had any experiences. And I always show them, I know your listeners won't be able to, but people watch the video. I've got this birthmark on my arm, and it's on my right wrist on the outside. And I don't know if you can see it, but to me, it's like my little spaceship. And so I always tell people that when they would come, especially when I was younger or whatever, that to, you know, between me and my sister, that was my mark. So they know, you know, get that one. Or that's the one that we're working on. So,
wow,
I feel like it's my little mark.
That did look like a spaceship.
it looked just like a UFO.
It did.
Yeah,
The one she described too.
yeah, that's amazing. And I know you said. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna tell you about one of my on a ship experiences. If you wanted to hear that.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have 2 that are really crazy. I'll tell you this one though, because it's a little bit more interesting. So I can tell you exactly when this happened. It was January 29th, 2022. And the reason why I remember that date is because I also quit a job of 20 years on that same day. So it was a very significant life event, although this abduction experience happened before I quit that job. And it's funny because I actually didn't even connect the dots that those two significant events even happened on the same day until several months later, because there was just a lot of stuff going on in my life, and I just didn't like even connect that those happened on the same day, but I feel like it's significant to mention. So it was in the middle of the night, and again in Greenbrier, Arkansas, a different house, but Greenbrier, Arkansas is where this happened. And I was just laying in bed, and full house, the kids are here, my husband's laying next to me, we got animals running around, and my cat woke me up, which is not unusual, about 4 a.m. or something. So I put him out and laid back down, and I was having a particularly difficult time in my life. So I was just trying to meditate and kind of calm myself down. I was having trouble sleeping. And so I was just trying to think good thoughts and send love to the people that were getting on my nerves and stuff like that, and just trying to fall asleep. And that went on for about 15 minutes. And in the middle of that, I felt like the air in the room kind of changed. Like there was something else in the room. And so once I felt that feeling, I would open my eyes, and I was still laying, and I was facing my husband. And as soon as I opened my eyes, I could see standing on the other side of him, on the other side of the bed, this little creature who was just kind of peeking up over his chest. So I could only see from nose up. And it was reaching its arm across his chest and reaching out for mine, with its palm up, like it was offering his hand or something to me. And again, it was very strange, because just like with the other experience I described, I didn't have a lot of emotions in that moment. It felt very calm. So I took its hand, and I got out of bed. And the weird thing is, and we have a king size bed, so it's a big bed. I stood up and was still holding its hand. So its arm essentially just stretched while I was still holding it. And it's still on the other side of the bed, just peeking, like it didn't want to, I guess, scare me. So I could only see it from nose up, even though it didn't really have a nose, but about the middle of its face. And at that point, I started to realize what was happening. Okay, that's an alien. I've seen this before. I know what's happening now. I started to realize. And so I was still holding its hand, and I said to it, "Why don't you just come over here? It'll be easier." And as soon as I said that, it just appeared right next to me. And I guess I could describe it as it wasn't really a typical gray, but it was about 5'2", so baby shoulder height to me. Had it seemed like a male, but it had a very motherly, nurturing vibe that it was giving off. The skin was wrinkled and gray, but also kind of with this glowing, very soft pink glow that was coming off of it as well. And the typical, large black eyes. Had about, I want to say 3 fingers and a thumb. I don't remember if it was 3 or 4 fingers, but it definitely did not have 5. And it was just holding my hand. And I started to get really excited, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm remembering this in the moment. I know this is not a dream. It's 100% real. I can feel its hand in my hand. It's standing right next to me. So I just start asking it questions like, where are you from? What's your name? Are you this race? Are you that race? I just start spouting off random things, just trying to see if it will communicate with me or what, what's going on. Because we were just standing there. We weren't doing anything. And so I'm really excited. And then it kind of puts its head on my shoulder, and I just calm down. And I was like, okay, I think it doesn't want me to get all excited, because it was it's like someone just kind of put a warm blanket over me. And then maybe 2 or 3 seconds later, I felt on my other shoulder, so my left shoulder, a hand come around. And I immediately realized, oh, there's another one right behind me. I didn't know there were 2. And so I did start to get scared, because I'm thinking, why is it behind me trying to grab me? I thought, is it going to try to choke me? Your mind kind of goes to all these places, but that fear only, stayed for about 5 to 10 seconds. And then I started to get calm again and was like, okay, if they were going to hurt me, they probably would have already hurt me. So I turned around to look to see what was behind me. And it was the same type of being, except it was taller. Everything about it looked the same, but it was maybe 6'3". And at that point, I was holding both of their hands. So they start walking me like we're going to go outside, because in my bedroom, we've got a door off to the laundry room, and then it just immediately goes into the backyard. And I thought, okay, we're going to go outside. Maybe there's a ship out there. I'm just kind of trying to, assume what's going to happen. And we walk a few steps, and I start to hear like they're talking to each other or something, but I can't really understand the words. I could just kind of feel like they're talking to each other. And so I said, "Can you speak louder? I want to know what you're saying." And then I just heard this very whisper of "okay." And then I couldn't hear them anymore. And we got to right before the laundry room door. And all of a sudden, like, I get really excited again. Like, I guess I broke out of the calmness or something. And I start asking again, "What's your name? Where are you from?" All these types of questions. And I heard one of them say something that I assume was in response to "what is your name?" I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of Yarkum. And I was like, "Oh, okay, I've never heard of that. I don't know if that's your rate. I don't know what that is, but that's just what I remember hearing." And then up in front of my field of vision, it was like a screen appeared, and they showed me what my cycles per second was that I was vibrating at. And it said something like 148,000 cycles per second. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever that means, And at that point, we didn't go out the laundry. We were standing right in front of the laundry room door. We didn't continue to move forward. We actually backed up a little bit, and we were right underneath my ceiling fan, and it's just whirring around and going. And we start to lift up. So the one that was on my right put his other arm around my waist, and I'm still holding the hands of both of them. And like, I'm a big girl, and I remember thinking, there is no way these little skinny, aliens are going to be able to take me anywhere. But they did. And as soon as my feet lifted off the ground, I couldn't see anymore. Like, everything just went black. I mean, it was already dark, at night, but my eyes had adjusted. I could see what was going on in the room, but everything just went black. But I could still hear everything, and I could still feel their hands in mine. So I knew that I wasn't like unconscious or anything. I just knew that we were moving. And we go up through the fan, and I can hear it whirring. And my stepson's room is like right above ours. And I remember thinking, are we like about to pass straight through him? Is that going to wake him up and freak him out? And then, my husband's going to wake up and see that I'm gone and someone's screaming. And so I have this fear about what's going to happen. So I don't know if we passed through him, but I remember having that thought. And so I can feel us going up, and that feeling maybe lasted, I don't know, not very long, less than 30 seconds. And it was black the whole time. And then all of a sudden I could see, and I assume we're inside of a craft. I did not see the outside of it. I don't know how far we went. I don't know if this was just right above my house or whatever, but all of a sudden I could see. And the room that I was in, I wouldn't even say it was really a room, because it was just this vast black space. There was no ceiling, floor, walls, no structure of any kind, no furniture, nothing. Except for there were people, what looked like people, sitting in a circle, like they were having some kind of get together. And that's all that was in the room. And there wasn't, like, I could see them, but I remember there being like no light source. There wasn't light coming from anywhere. And they saw me as I was coming through the room, because I was just kind of like passing through this. I wasn't stopping in this room. I knew for whatever reason, I'm just passing through. So I go up through and they stop their conversation. They look at me, welcome me, like, hi, bye, see you later. And then they continue their conversation. And then I'm going up a little more. And then I'm in like what looks like a real room. It's got walls, ceiling, all that good stuff. And everything was like a light seafoam green color. And as soon as I entered that room, I started to freak out again, because there were other people in this room, and they were arranged in rows. I would say it is about 4 rows of 4 people, kind of evenly distributed. But the thing that was frightening about it was they were all standing up straight erect with their arms down, and they were like shaking like they were being electrocuted. And they didn't so much look like they were in pain, but it definitely didn't look like something I wanted to be involved in. Like, I don't want to be in that room. But that's the room they were taking me to. So when I got there fully in the room and they set my feet down on the ground, as soon as that happened, everyone stopped shaking and they turned and looked at me. And at that moment, I felt like I knew every single one of them, and they knew me, and they knew each other. And it was like this reunion or something. And we just all start talking to each other like we're old friends. I couldn't tell you who any of these people even are. I knew them at some other maybe I just know them here. I don't know. But we just had a good old time just talking to each other. And the ETs that had brought me were kind of standing off to the side, just watching us. And so after about, 5 minutes of everyone kind of going around and, hey, how are you doing? So glad to see you, hug, all this kind of stuff. They had us stand in a circle. So we're standing in a circle, and there was only one person in the room that I didn't know. And so one of the ETs who was kind of over here to my left, he pointed to the gentleman that was 2 people over to my right, the one that I did not recognize at all. I don't know who this person was. Pointed at him and said to me, do you remember who that is? And so I start looking at this guy, and I don't know who he is. I have absolutely no idea. He was wearing like an army type shirt with all the pockets and the army green and these khaki cargo type pants, kind of a bigger guy. And he resembled a few people that I know, but I just didn't know it. And they kept asking me, do you remember him? Do you remember him? And so I start feeling this pressure. Like I have to tell them something. This is some kind of weird test. Like, I don't understand. But every time I'd look at this guy and I think I would know who he is, his face would just like slightly change. And then I think I'd know who it was, and then his face would slightly change. And so I'm getting really frustrated because I don't have an answer for them. So at some point I just said, because I for years, I've been in the financial industry for years. And so I've come across a lot of faces and customers, and I don't, remember everybody. So I said the only thing that I could think of is, well, I must know you from the bank. And as soon as I said that, all of a sudden I'm back in my bed and I'm sitting straight up and I'm wide awake. And I just went, oh, like I felt like I failed some weird test, and I was completely disappointed in myself. I had no idea how I got back to my bed. I immediately looked at my phone to see how much time had passed. And it was 4:53 at that moment. When I had originally put my cat out, it was like 4. So about an hour or so. That was it. That was the end of it. And I remember feeling really excited that I had remembered it, but also like I failed something. Who is this guy that I'm supposed to know? This is maybe the most interesting part about it. Fast forward a few months, I had come across a sort of a friend of a friend who had been a part of, I want to say in the Dallas region, someone kind of high up in MUFON. And so I hooked up with that lady and talked to her about my experiences. And she suggested, oh, you need to go do this QHHT. And have you heard of Dolores Cannon and all this? And I hadn't heard of any of that. So I went and did this QHHT session where they do this, they put you under and all that kind of stuff. And we didn't talk about the alien experiences during that session. But the lady who I was doing my session with said, oh, you need to watch such and such documentary. I think you'd like it. It's all about abductees. And I was like, great, I'll watch it when I get home. So this is like, I'm laying the puzzle pieces because this is the strangest way that I got around to this part. So I go home, and a few days later, I'm watching this documentary with my husband, and we're sitting there. And the guy who did the documentary, he was an experiencer himself. And he was already like in the TV business and a filmmaker and did all this. And he decided he wanted to, do this and kind of veer off from what he had been doing before. And so the documentary featured him and a couple other people. And one of the guys in the documentary I knew, like personally, and had no idea that he was, one, on the documentary, or two, ever had experiences like this. So I was like, how weird is that? So I start messaging him like, oh my gosh, I just saw you on this documentary. That's crazy. And so I'm really invested in this documentary at this point because my friend is in it. And it goes along, and the gentleman who's like narrating it, who it's mostly about him, I just look at my husband and I'm like, gosh, he looks so familiar. Where do I know him from? And I just could not put my finger on it. And then all of a sudden I thought, wait a minute, is this the same guy? Because he looked just very similar to the guy that I saw on this ship that I couldn't quite make out who he was. And I said to my husband, if he says anything about like being in the army or anything like that, like that's, I don't know, that's going to be like my green light that has got to be the guy. And not 2 or 3 seconds later in the documentary, it said that the guy had said something like he had been on a ship and they had talked about there being this war of souls. And just the word war kind of triggered me. And I'm like, that's good enough for me. That's good enough for me. So after the documentary, I said, okay, I'm going to message this guy just out of the blue because I honestly, this has got to be him. Something just felt so right about it. And then the fact that my friend was in it and I didn't even know it. I was like, okay, I have an in. I can tell it like we have this mutual friend and maybe he'll see this message out of the blue. So I messaged him and told him, hey, I found him on Facebook and just said, hey, you don't know me from Adam, but I'm pretty sure we've had a shared experience on a ship and I'd love to tell you about it if you want to hear. And I told him the date and a little bit about it, not much. And about 3 weeks later, he replied back to me and he said, Allison, I don't know what made me hit this button. I've never seen message requests in this place before, but I clicked on it and there was your message. And yes, I need to talk to you. And so we got on a Zoom maybe 2 weeks later and I told him everything. I've told him about all my experiences and the one specifically that I was like, I'm pretty sure it was you that was here with me. And he went on to tell me, he keeps like a journal of everything. And he says, well, I don't remember that experience, but he had in his journal that he had missing time that same day. And I was like, well, it just has to be you. Like, it just has to be you. So it was the craziest thing. The unfortunate part about it is that he ended up with this very aggressive form of pancreatic cancer and died on really close to my birthday this year, back in February. I never got to meet him in person, but I still to this day, I'm like, what was it I was supposed to know? Why was I supposed to remember him? What did that have to do with anything? It still bugs me to this day that I can't figure out why they were so adamant on me knowing who he was. And then I go and find him in real life and then he dies like a year later. Or about 2 years later. It was a very strange thing. That was probably my most profound experience of more recent times. So
that's interesting.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that is a good.
Since that one, have you had any others that almost coincided and made you think that, like you said, you think that was who that was supposed to be? So like they confirmed that you finally got it?
No, not with those particular entities. I've had some others where I haven't had any that I can remember even repeated coming to me. It's always like new every time, unless I'm just not remembering everything. I'm sure there's some that maybe were scary and they've shielded my memory or something, which I appreciate. But I also would just like to know. I want to know everything that's happened to me, even if it was scary. I just feel like that's kind of my right as a human to know everything that's happened. But I do know that because I did have a situation one time, this was about a year ago, where they came in my room and I knew it was them, but they masked themselves to look like people. I mean, I know it's not really Kevin Bacon in my room, but that's who one of them appeared as.
Wow.
And the other one was a sort of an elderly, just sweet looking lady. And she was reading me my favorite story. And so they were trying to distract me. And they were working on my side, doing something on my side. I don't know what. I was totally frozen, couldn't move, and all I can feel is this pain and pressure in my side. And at some point, it just got to be too much. And I said, okay, that's a little too much. That hurts. And as soon as I thought that, then, I woke up. I didn't remember anything after that. So I think I guess if you at least request, or if you feel like you're in distress, they'll turn you off or something like that, or block your memory.
I had a vivid dream almost like that. I don't know if it was a contact moment or what, but I was having some trouble with my I had arrhythmia where my heart got out of rhythm, and I was going to the doctors and stuff, but this one night I had a dream about this aliens had came. I know I've told this story before, but I don't know. It looked like a little boy, really, but I was going outside, and one of them just like shot me like in the back or maybe the butt. I don't remember, and I was just froze and couldn't move and was laying on the ground, and they had their hand on me, on my chest area, doing something. And they was saying they was going to take me somewhere. I can't remember everything about it, but I told them no, I couldn't go because I had family, I had this, that, and so they let me stay at home, but they took me to some kind of I don't know if it was their ship or what. And I was just looking around, then woke up. It was just crazy, but it was real vivid, like it was so real.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
They definitely feel real.
Yeah. Crazy. My heart's back in rhythm, though.
Yep.
That's good.
They helped you out.
It might have been alien intervention.
If they're like experimenting on us, they want to keep us alive as long as possible. I think.
I hardly ever have dreams like that. I don't know why that it was like that. So real. It's crazy.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That was a good story, though. I remember when it happened to you.
Yeah.
Was it recent?
Maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's recent, yeah. Wow.
What recently has happened to you? Was that the recent?
Well, no, I'm trying to remember this one. It was definitely this year. I don't remember if it was 3 or 4 months ago. It might have been earlier in the year, but it was the same. 9 times out of 10, I'm laying in my bed and it's in the middle of the night type thing. Like they come to me in my bedroom. And I don't know what time of the night it was, but it was a similar situation. My cat wakes me up. I let the cat out. So I'm wide awake. I'm laying there trying to go back to sleep. And I at some point drift off, but I wake up because I see, and sometimes I sleep with like an earthing mat or a grounding mat underneath me. And I woke up to this, he looked like a clown jester type person, but just not with makeup. And he was literally like doing flips and splits. And I was like, I've seen enough of, like, I had experienced enough at this point to know immediately, okay, they're here, they're trying to distract me. And me being like, I want to know what's going on. So I said, okay, don't do all that. Just show me what you're doing. And so they respected that. And so this clown thing isn't there anymore. All of a sudden there's this creature that's right next to my bed, and he's kind of lifting me up by, like, the mat is underneath me. So he's lifting me up. And so I'm kind of going up, my pillow's going up and my head is going up. And it's like they're trying to take it out from underneath me because then they want to set me up. And this thing, it was definitely, I would say, the ugliest one so far that has visited me. And it was strange because I could see him actually transform from what looked like a human previously into himself. So he shrunk way down and was probably, 4.5 feet. I'm being generous, 4.5 feet tall. Maybe he came about to I'm just going to go with that, 4.5 feet tall. And real wrinkly skin, kind of tannish. I don't want to say leathery, but real wrinkly skin. And he had a real thick neck. All the other beings I've ever experienced had very thin necks, whether they looked reptilian or gray or whatever. So that was very different, that it had like a really thick neck, almost no neck at all, and really long fingers, and was wearing like black clothing. And so he picks me up, and then I kind of look, because I'm focused on him, and I look around, and there's two more in the room that look just like him. And so I say to them, like, you don't have to, like, I felt like they were trying to put me under because I was really groggy or something. And I said, okay, I can walk. I don't want you to touch me. Like, I'll come with you willingly, basically. So I sat myself up, and they were trying to get me out of bed. And I said, just let me do it. So I stood up, and I said, I'll follow you. It's fine. I think I negotiated with him at some point and said, if you let me remember this experience, I will do what you tell me to do, basically. Obviously to a point. So they start walking, and we live on a like multi-level. So we have to go up the stairs to go out the front door. And so we were walking up the stairs, and they're all three in front of me. We go out my front door, and then I'm the last one out. So I go to close my door, and then I'm like trying to set to lock it with the buttons and stuff. And I couldn't, like, it was dark. I couldn't see the buttons. And so I guess I was like lagging behind too much. And so then all of a sudden they just kind of lifted me up. I don't know. They were nowhere near me telepathically, I guess. They just lifted me up, and now I'm just kind of floating above them. I lost my walking privileges at that point.
Oh no.
and I'm still like very calm, and I'm a little bit excited because I'm like, I'm remembering, like, this is happening. I'm remembering it in the moment. And so I'm kind of maybe like 15 feet off the ground, and my body is flat, and I'm just kind of floating along behind them. And I see my little cat running around, and I'm like, oh my God, there's my cat. And that's crazy. And we don't go very far. The ship is actually sitting right in the front yard. And it's like tic-tac shaped, silver, but really small. It looked really not large at all, at least from the outside. Because when I went inside, it looked bigger, but not like huge and vast or anything like that. And it wasn't like sitting on the ground. It was kind of hovering, maybe 6 inches above the ground. And then there was a second craft. And we have a lot of trees in our front yard, so I couldn't quite see it, but it was definitely more boxy. It had edges and corners. It wasn't spherical or cylindrical or anything like that. And it was off to the side. I don't know what was going on over there. And so they're walking, I'm floating. We get close to the ship, and then they put me down. So now I'm walking again. And I see what looks like a human walking from the second craft over to one of the creatures that had initially taken me. And I could hear their conversation, and just bits and pieces of it. And there was something to the effect of, they were trying to figure out how to extract they had been testing out how to do some type of extraction of some type of metal substance, and they had been testing it out, and whatever they were testing wasn't working. So they were going to, quote, like, do the old method or whatever tried and true method. So at that point, I remember thinking, oh, they're going to replace an implant. I don't know. I'm just like trying to think of what's happening. And so we go into this craft, and the thing that disturbed me the most about it is that there were humans in there that looked like they were working. And I'm like, well, maybe it's just the aliens again cloaking their true appearance. But I thought it was odd because then I saw other aliens that looked like the other. So I'm like, why are there some already in the ship cloaked and some not? I didn't really understand. And it looked honestly kind of messy inside, which to me, I'm like, this seems like a human thing. This doesn't seem like a highly technological, highly advanced area. And so at that point, I started to think, well, maybe they're messing with my memory again. They're not letting me see everything exactly as it is. So I'm walking in, I'm in my nightgown or whatever, and there are a couple other humans over here to the side that they're like laying down they're doing something with them over here. I don't know what they're doing. And there's a large screen up front, doesn't have anything going on it. And then most of the ETs are over here to the left, like talking or whatever they're doing. And there was one who looked like a human, and he's got this lab coat on, and he's sitting at this desk, and he's got all this equipment that he's doing stuff on. And so I just hone in on him. And I'm trying to get more information because I'm just like super nosy. And I'm like, I started to get the impression that like they knew me. I've been here. We've done this. Like, this is not the first time I've done this or something. And so I look at him and say, how many times have you had a conversation with me? Or how many times have you seen me or something like that? And he's like, oh, it's like quite a few times or something. And I'm like, okay. I said, tell me what your name is. Because I just thought he was human. I'm just like, he's a human. I'm going to look him up on Google or something as soon as I'm done with this. Like, all I need is your name, because I'm always like, I want proof. I want to show people this proof because it just makes everything better.
Yes.
And so he goes, okay. He says his first name is Michael. And then his last name is like, I have never heard these words put together. I'm like, what are you saying? I don't understand what you're saying. Can you say that again? And he keeps having to repeat it. And I'm like, what are you like? Are we not speaking the same language? And so I said, can you spell that for me? Maybe I can like remember it that way. So he starts to like spell it, and it's like BR. And then at that point, I could tell that we had gotten the attention of some of the others that were kind of over to the side, and maybe he wasn't supposed to be interacting with me or something, because at that point I have no further memory of it. I was right back in my bed, wide awake, going, what the heck just happened? And immediately I looked at my phone, I checked the time, and I'm like looking at my doorbell camera. I'm like, is the thing still outside? And, trying to figure out exactly. The next morning I go out and I'm like looking in the yard, like for scorch marks, or I don't know, anything. And I mean, nothing of significance came up. I never saw myself leave on camera, or that the front door even opened or closed. It's got the sensors that tell you what time, it's done that, and nothing. So I was like, I was so disappointed, because I remember thinking, yes, I'm going to have proof. I'm going to be able to show people that like this actually happened. And of course, none of that was recorded, or they blocked or whatever. So, that was the most recent one I've had, and probably the most disturbing, just because I'm like, why are there humans working on this ship? I don't get that. And then the crafter actually like landed in my front yard, which kind of freaked me out too. Because it was just different.
Question I do, Jason.
Yeah, we probably do have the same question. You go.
No,
go
ahead.
Go ahead.
You started to ask it first, so.
No, you did.
I was just gonna ask you if you think that there are those kind of interactions where the U.S. government is, interacting with these things and going along, and when they abduct people or doing things like that, because it sounds like that's what that experience almost was.
And that's probably why, honestly, it disturbs me the most, because I don't want to be involved in such programs. And just the fact that when I went inside, it's like I saw physical paper sitting around. It did not look super crisp and clean. And I'm like, why would ETs need paper? They don't need paper.
Right.
And so just that's what I think disturbed me the most about it, is that if that's the case, they can come into my house, they can, float me in the air, and they can do all these things. And one thing I forgot about, I'm just now remembering, is whenever I came back to bed, my left ear, like I could hardly hear out of it. And I had this terrible earache, and I went into the bathroom and was like, what is going on? And then I had remembered much later them saying the thing about, extracting the metal. And I was like, I wonder if that has to do with something they did while I was there. Because it was definitely, I had never had that before, where I've had an experience where there was anything that affected my ear after the fact. And the pain didn't last long. It was, less than 24 hours. That all went away. I don't have any like marks or scars or anything, but yeah, I don't definitely want to participate if it's government
Stephen, one of our people in the chat room, he's I don't know if you can see the chat, but he wants to know, he said, when you have been taken, did the ETs always walk or float or pass through walls?
All of the above. Not that I was necessarily looking at what their feet were doing, but I have seen, especially that last one that I mentioned, since they were walking in front of me, I could see them from head to toe. So it looked to me like they were walking. The others, I've had a few where I could see them walking just because the interaction was like them starting at the top of the stairs and walking down. But other than that, I don't know if the others were actually touching the floor or just kind of hovering. There was one experience where, and it was super short, so I won't even share it. It was a very short experience that I had with one ET. She came into my room and she took me through my wall, out like through my headboard and through my wall, and I was totally like, there was no blackout. I saw myself passing through the wall. Wow. And she plashed right, with me. She was carrying me essentially. And then we went out, and it was very cold outside. Like I could see my breath, and so it was like November. And we go around the front of my house and above this big tree we have by the house. And then I don't see the ship, but all of a sudden I'm in what looks like a medical facility. But that was definitely a time I remember seeing them, I guess, at least pass through the wall.
Wow. That would be weird. To be awake and actually see yourself going through a wall.
Yeah.
That would be
weird. That's weird.
Yeah.
Of course, I had fear like, am I going to get stuck halfway? Is this going to be a Philadelphia experiment situation?
Yeah. That's exactly what came to mind when you said it.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got about 3 minutes. This has been a very short. We need to do it again.
Yeah, we've got to have you back on again.
Yeah. There's so much more to ask and talk about.
I'll be happy. I'll be happy.
It went by so quick.
I know, time flies.
Steven's
Time is strange.
It is
strange.
Steven's got another question. How do you feel when experiencing this happening to you? Like,
well, usually in the moment, they've all been so different. A lot of times it's curiosity. I don't have a lot of fear. You would think I would, considering I wake up and all of a sudden there's just these strange things in my room. So I definitely feel like they're doing something to me to keep me calm. So I don't know so much that my natural feelings are coming out, but I do know that as soon as they're done and I'm, back in my bed or whatever the case is, and I realize, oh, it's over, then I have all types of, usually it's excitement. And this, like, if I don't write this down right now, I'm going to forget it. So I usually I got a voice recorder or I type it up to myself or something because I want to remember every single detail. Because sometimes I can go back and look, I keep a diary of it. I can go back and look and be like, oh yeah, I forgot that happened to me. And oh yeah, 2 years later, something really similar happened. So it's kind of like over time, I hope to find some type of pattern because I need to make sense of it somehow. I'm not sure how else to do that. I actually had a dream really recently, maybe 2 weeks ago, where there was a being that came, and I knew it was a dream. I have lucid dreams and stuff like that. And I tend to be able at this point to tell the difference between an OBE, or something physical happening versus a dream or whatever. This was clearly a dream. I had a being that came to me and just hugged me real tight and said, "We're done with you making hybrid children. You're not going to have any more hybrid children with us." And I remember being really sad and being like, oh, I don't want to be done. Like I'm willing to do this and I want to do this. And, I didn't want to be done. So I'll be interested to see kind of from here on out how things change. If I start having less experiences or if that was really a true being in a dream or if it's just some random dream that I had that doesn't mean anything, but, it's definitely it was a definitely interesting turn of events. So
that's interesting. Yeah. So what do you feel, or how does it make you feel about knowing that there's a possibility that you could have hybrid children? Because I've heard a lot of stories of where people at some point were actually shown their children or what they because they were brought into a room with the child and stuff and left for a minute, you know.
Well, I hope if I have any, I get to meet them in the physical one day. I have had some dreams where it seemed like I met them, but they were infants. But they seemed like, you know how infants are completely helpless. They can't hold their head up. They can't do anything. But these infants can talk and, you know, have a whole conversation with you. And, you know, obviously there are things different about their appearance, but, you know, mostly human. So, you know, I think, well, maybe I have met some of them in dreams or something like that. But I definitely would love to hug one of them, you know, if I ever saw one in real life. That would be pretty awesome. Yeah.
Got one more question.
One more question.
Susan.
From Susan, did you ever feel threatened or scared at any time?
I would say yes, but they were very fleeting moments. If it was ever like, I've never gone to where I felt like I just am traumatized. I've never gone that far or anything like that. I've had some moments where I'm like, you know, you kind of tense up and you're like, I don't know what's getting ready to happen. And then you just kind of get calm. I've had some of those moments. But other than that, really not anything drastic or anything. So I'm thankful for that. Again, I might have had those experiences and they just have blocked my memory. I hope someday they come back just because I like to know and want to know. But, you know, thank you for your questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody
Thanks for listening and watching.
Yes. And thank you, Allison, for coming on. This has been an amazing hour.
Yeah.
It's actually been a quick hour.
It's too short.
Very good. I appreciate both of you very much. And I love that you're doing this podcast. We need more of this type of thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And we like to, you know, associate with other podcasts and other places that do these kinds of things and be on their shows. And because, you know, when we can interact with each other and have these conversations, then, you know, it makes it to where, like you said, when we were talking before, you know, makes it where it's not so weird, you know, and people,
right.
If we could bring it into the mainstream where more people don't look their noses down at it, I think the time will come. I do.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
I mean, with the government now talking about UAPs and everything else, you know, I think the time will be there for sure.
Looking forward to it.
Yes, absolutely. I just don't know why they don't have people like you come to those hearings.
Yeah.
Because it's funny that they keep that side out of it, you know, for sure.
Well, they want proof, you know, they want to see the physical evidence. Unfortunately, there's really not going to be much of that. So
I think they've already got it.
Well, yeah.
I think they've got it, you know.
That's true too.
Disclosure, like Steven said, is soft disclosure.
Soft disclosure.
Yes. I'm going to just drip it very slowly out to us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when this air, I'll send you a link and tell you when this will air in Atlanta, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Some other
you
time,
guys.
let us know.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know we've barely got a drop in the bucket from you.
Yeah.
I'd love to do it again.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Allison.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, good night.
Bye.
Bye. Man,
Allison Hartman.
that was a fantastic.
Oh yes.
Fantastic
Very good.
interview.
Very good.
Wow.
I mean, probably talk about that for 4 hours.
You know, we used to do a 3-hour show and we
Yes.
probably could have done one tonight.
And it's nice when you have somebody that's experienced that and you
Yes.
can talk to them.
Yeah. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's interesting because I think that's only the second person we've ever had on that's had those kind of experiences,
Yeah.
wasn't it? When we went to the Bigfoot conference, was it last year or the year before last? The guy came on the show.
Last year.
Was it last
Yeah.
year? Yeah. And so it was fantastic, but there was nothing. We've never had anything like that.
No,
Never. So
that's very, very interesting and very good.
Yeah.
It's a
I
good.
love it.
I got to hear more.
I got to grab the book.
Yeah.
So remember, you can find us at paranormal411.org, paranormal411 on Facebook, YouTube, and X. Oh, Jason's got the music. Tune in live every Tuesday and Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, and on Saturdays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time. Now, if you're in the metro Atlanta area, you can catch us at WDJY FM. That's 99.1 FM. For listeners outside of Atlanta, you could visit us on WDJYFM.com, or you can click the link on our website. We're also on Subspace Radio and all of your major podcast platforms. Don't miss our new book, East Tennessee Hauntings and Lore, 2nd edition. This is our beautiful hardback cover.
Oh, yeah.
Available on Amazon or at paranormal411.org. Join us.
Also, this Thursday and Saturday, we will not have a show. We will be preparing for the conference.
Yes. Got to get everything ready and everything.
So we will be back on
next Tuesday. Yeah. So it'll be a week from this Tuesday. So, yeah.
All right. Thank y'all for
Thank everybody.
watching.
Have a good night.